Jordin Canada has found another level this year. She's here to talk all about it. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. You guys keep showing up for us, over 100,000 listeners last month. Again, we are on pace to beat that here in August. Make sure you're subscribing if you're not at YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, it is not just me, it is the incredible team over at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month on women's basketball. It's $9 a month or $72 a year. Go ahead and subscribe. It supports the journalists doing this work, making sure we have this coverage with urgency, 24/7, 365. We are here every day, not just for the clicks, for everything. And someone who I have been privileged to talk about and cover, dating back to her UCLA days, is the great Jordin Canada of the Los Angeles Sparks, who joins us to talk about what really is a slam dunk case for most improved player, but we're going to get into that. And I guess, Jordin, where I want to start is I know how much work you put in the offseason in an array of different ways that are manifesting themselves. Was there a moment early on this season where it really felt like, all right, this is clicking, this is working in the way I was hoping it would?
I think beginning of the season, honestly, I put in a lot of work in the off season and just trying to find that confidence that I had while I was at UCLA and just, trusting the process and trusting what I did in the off season. And then as soon as season started, it kind of just flowed into that. And I've been confident ever since of feeling like my old self again. So really just the hard work that I put into the off season.
It's really interesting to me because I remember dating back to the year you were drafted. And of course, you were a knockdown perimeter shooter at UCLA. And so when you talk about kind of getting that confidence back, it's so interesting to me, that process. There's two parts to it, right? There's obviously being able to be accurate, but there's also, I think Cheryl Reeve uses this phrase all the time, of being a willing shooter. Take me through, sort of how you think there was that disconnect and the ways in which you found to get it back, because it's as much psychological as it is physical, right?
Right. I think, coming into Seattle, being drafted, being in a different role, honestly, my whole career up until that point, I was a starter and just being in that leadership role and then coming onto a fully talented team and playing behind one of the best point guards, if not the best point guard in the history of WNBA and Sue Bird. I mean, that was a lot. And, I had to learn a lot. I had to figure out my role, what it was. And so it was just a lot that I had to deal with. And I think mentally that kind of took me out of, who I was as a player and trying to establish a new role and being put into a new system. And I think that was just really hard for me, honestly, throughout my years in Seattle, trying to navigate that. Honestly, obviously being in and out of the lineup, my second year having to step in when Sue was out, and I kind of got my confidence back a little bit there. But it like you said, it's more psychological than physical. And I think once I came to the Sparks, I was able to kind of get that confidence back and feeling like I was being put into more of a leadership role.
Mhm.
And I think that helped me, honestly. And then, like I said, in the off season, just trusting the work that I put in, and then coming into this season knowing that I had another opportunity to be a leader of this team. And I think that just kind of helped, get me back to where I used to be.
It's hard, obviously, to figure out when and how to voice leadership, to be vocal in that way. What is that line for you? How do you kind of figure that out? And how have you struck that balance throughout your career, both in Seattle and here in LA now?
Well, I've always been more of a quiet leader. I'm more of a lead by example type of player, but I understand now that being a vet, I guess I can say now, that I have to use more of my voice. Like there's no other choice, there's no other option for me. And like I said, I think being here has given me the leadership role to use my voice more, and the coaches and my teammates have given me that confidence and that courage to use my voice more, because it's very important being a leader on this team and being a starting point guard for this team. I know that I have to use my voice, and knowing that in my mind and knowing that's what I had to do coming into this season, I've been more intentional about doing that.
When you think back to Seattle, are there ways you would have approached it differently with sort of the ability to look back as a veteran now? I can't really get my mind around you as a veteran, having covered
Yeah,
you in college.
I,
It's
I
true.
time has been flying. I can't even believe I'm considered a vet now either. But
It's true.
in Seattle, like I said, I think I was more of a lead by example. I felt like I still had so much to learn going into Seattle, being a rookie, and playing with players like Stewie and Sue and Jewel, who have been in the game for a long time at that point, and having the knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now, so I didn't feel like I could use my voice to a certain extent, only because I wasn't knowledgeable. I was still trying to figure out the league and figure out my role. And now being in the league for 6 years, I think I finally developed, the knowledge of the game and the pace and the system that I'm in, and feeling comfortable using my voice.
Now, when it comes to figuring out that spot for you, you had an opportunity to move to LA, follow ahead of last season, not this season. Take me through what your thinking was about that. You're entering your age 26 season at that time. You're still, trying to develop who you are as a player. How did LA fit into kind of the Jordan Canada project writ large in your mind?
Well, I know at some point in my career, I've always wanted to play for LA, because, I'm an LA girl. I grew up going to Sparks games, and I always envisioned myself being, at Staples Center, now Crypto, playing on that floor. And I feel like, at that time, it was a point for me to, do something different and take a risk, and wanting to bet on myself. And LA came with me with the opportunity to come home, and I thought it was the perfect time for my career to just come home and be surrounded by love and my family and friends, and feeling like I had that support, like I did at UCLA. And I just thought it was a really important moment for me to just bet on myself and come home and play for the Sparks.
When you made this decision, did knowing that Corey Close is nearby serve as a positive for it as well? And just, what has Corey's voice been like, in the time, even just since you were at UCLA?
She's always been, that type of positive leader, and she was like that even when I was in Seattle, just checking in from time to time, seeing how I'm doing, and always sending encouraging text messages or tweeting something about me, and giving me that encouragement that I definitely needed. But all the coaches do that at UCLA. Even Tasha, who I didn't get to get coached by, but she's checks in on me every now and then. And I actually got to see Coach Jenny a couple of days ago in Indiana. She came to my games. Just having a support system like that, and coaches who have still poured into me even after I left UCLA, has been really positive for me, and really important. And that's what I mean by having that love and support, no matter where I go. But Coach Corey has definitely been someone that checks in from time to time to see how I'm doing, and Coach Shannon as well. She was my mentor at UCLA, so she's always texting me and seeing how I'm doing. So I'm thankful to have coaches like that in my corner.
Good people, not just good coaches,
Yes,
no doubt
absolutely.
about it. Can't really get my mind around the idea of UCLA in the Big Ten, but are you
Yeah,
are you
I can't
disappointed you
either.
don't get to take road trips to Rutgers and University of Iowa just in the course of conference play?
That's gonna be interesting. I'm excited to see how it plays out. That obviously it might be. I don't want to say. Pac-12 has always been very competitive, but it's a different type of competitiveness when you're going into the Big Ten. So I'm excited for them and to see how it turns out. Hopefully I'll be able to take some trips in the off season if I'm not overseas. But we'll see how it plays out.
It's going to be fascinating to see. And so in segment two, we're going to talk about your growth on the court this year and how it fits into the long-term Sparks planned. First, though, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, the football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving everyone listening a chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every time they win during the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on everything from spreads to player props, over-unders, and more. Just go to fanduel.com/locked-on and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That is fanduel.com/LOCKEDON. So I think our listeners have a sense of it, but I want to just run it down, which I think it's important that people understand not just the top line and the production that you have put together this year, but also just what it means from an efficiency standpoint. That was the thing that I enjoyed as much as anything about your game at UCLA, and we're seeing it manifest itself here at the professional level even more than ever. So just real briefly, from last year to this year, most improved player, literally you're trying to determine who is most improved. Let's do it, right? 9.2 points per game to 13.3. You're top 30 in the league now. Assists 5.5 to 6. Now your assist numbers have always been, and we'll get into like the per 100, but you're north of 30% again. But this is always what you do. Rebounding, 3.4 rebounds up from 2.3. You're top 60 in the league and top 20 among guards. Steals, you went from 1.4 to 1.9 per game. It's even bigger on a per minute basis. Free throws, you are up to 89.9%. Again, just parenthetically, if I can take a victory lap, I have long maintained that your three-point shot is always going to be there because of your ability to hit free throws, and you're seeing that as well. Field goal percentage, you're up to 40.3%, and threes are from 14 to 32.2. But the bigger number for me when it comes to the shooting, I want to get into that, the work that you did, is your true shooting percentage, which I think is just a better way of evaluating shooting overall, because not just what you're taking, but where you're taking it from. Your true shooting percentage this year is 53.2%. Again, to do that as a guard with an assist percentage north of 32 is really significant before you even get into the defensive side of it. Two things off of that. Number one, you're north of 60% around the rim, 0 to 3. I remember you and I having this conversation back at UCLA, how like, because you have the quickness to be able to do it, people were like, oh, well, size, is she going to be able to do it at the next level? You've been north of 60% around the rim your whole career. This is obvious. You were always going to get there first and do it. Are you finding it easier to get to the rim this year as people have had to play your three-point shot differently?
Yeah, I think because I've been more of a willing shooter now and being able to take those threes and jumpers, I do find it a slightly easier to get to the rim. Not that I've always had trouble, but I
Right.
think it's just easier for me to make decisions on whether I could shoot now or get to the rim. So it has helped for, me to be more of a willing shooter and not being afraid to take those threes or take, those pull-up jumpers that, I was hesitant to take in the last couple of years of my career. It has definitely opened up the paint for me to drive and finish at the rim.
I mean, it's just amazing, right? And I don't want to harp on it too much, but just not more than 90% of your shots were at the rim a couple of seasons. When you were able to do it with that level of efficiency, you're not taking that out of your game, but you are taking about 30% of your attempts from beyond the arc. I know Kurt Miller is very big on shots at the rim or beyond the three-point arc. How much is his philosophy dovetailing with your ability to maximize what you're able to do in those two spots?
I think his system that I'm in has definitely helped me this year and this season. He's given me the confidence and the green light to be confident in shooting threes, and that's something that we talked about in the offseason before re-signing to the Sparks, of how he wanted me to be willing to shoot open shots and not being afraid to take those shots. And, I took that into consideration. And I think going into training camp, I was very mindful of that and knowing that, like I said, trusting the process and trusting the work that I put in the off season of shooting those shots, and just putting it into play. And I think that has definitely helped me. And like I said, my coaches and my teammates have encouraged me to do so. And so that has kind of instilled the confidence in me to continue to shoot. And I know that I can shoot. I was like that at UCLA, and I know that that's truly how I play and the type of player that I am. And I knew I just had to, get my mental back to where I used to be in order to play how I play now. And I think that has all, come into fruition just because of the work that I put in.
No question. I want to get to that work, but I also want to get to that conversation because some people can talk about it as, oh, well, they took a leap of faith with you, and ultimately bringing you in and you earning that starting spot. And Karen Bryan, when we spoke to her a few weeks ago, talked about the fact that, there's nothing promised. It had to be earned. But to a certain extent, you had to make a leap of faith too. This is a very different team from the Sparks team you played on last year with, with KB in a full-time role, with Kurt as a new head coach. It's a new system coming in. What did you hear from them during those meetings that led you to believe that this was going to be the type of spot it's been for you here in 2023?
Well, yeah, they talked about, like you said, nothing is given. I had to earn it, and I'm one of those type of people and players that want to go out and earn something. I'm very competitive, and I like to step up to challenges, and just also just the rebuild that they were talking about with LA and the things that they had planned, 2-3 year plan down the line of how they want to turn the Sparks back into the franchise that it used to be.
Mhm.
And, obviously playing with NECA, I mean, honestly, I truly loved playing with NECA last year and just getting to develop that friendship and relationship with her. And I knew that I wanted to come back. But yeah, I think it's just stepping up to the challenge and knowing that I had to bet on myself because I know I put in the work and I just have to go out there and show it. But also having, I wanted to be a part of the rebuild. I wanted to be a part of something that was getting ready to transform into something new, but also understanding the legacy behind the Sparks and, wanting to continue that history. And I wanted to be a part of that.
Well, and let's get something straight for our listeners. You may be a vet, but you're a young vet. We're in your age 27 season. This is prime Jordan Canada is what we're talking about right now over this period of time. So this is a real opportunity. And then I guess I'm wondering to that extent when Kurt's talking about, looking for you to be more of a willing shooter. Did you talk to him about the work that you were putting in as well? In other words, did he have a sense that he wasn't just getting somebody who was willing to put in the time to become a willing shooter, but that you had turned yourself into the shooter that you've been so far this year?
Well, I briefly talked to him about, the work that I was putting in.
Mhm.
But I think you never really, I mean, as a coach or as a player, you don't really know until it happens. And so I think, he kind of had an idea, but I'm not sure if, I know he said this on one of the interviews, that he didn't understand how competitive I was. And that's because, he coached for the Sun. He didn't really get to coach me, obviously. So he wasn't quite sure of how competitive I was until we got to training camp. And I think that's when he realized, I'm willing to step up to the challenge. And, I feel like, I think that's with any coach or player, you never really know until it happens. And so I think I talked to him about the work that I was putting in, but I don't know if he like quite understood, just because, he was never coached by me. So he didn't understand, um, how hard of a worker that I was until we got to training camp.
I want to talk about that work. I want to get a handle on what that felt like during the off season. Take me through what a day in the life of Jordan Canada was like. How many shots are you putting up? Where are you putting up those shots? What was that regimen like?
Yeah, so it was a lot. It was mostly conditioning shooting. I have a trainer. His name is Dane Johnson, out of Las Vegas. That's where I live in the off season. And we would go up to UNLV and we would just shoot all the time, whether it be in transition, whether it be off the dribble, finishing around the rim, different finishes, working on floaters, transition threes, full court transition threes. It was a lot of finishing and lots of shooting, and it was tiring. And I remember at some days I used to complain to him all the time about how this was too tiring and, I wanted to do something different, but I just stuck and I had to trust the process. And I allowed him to push me. I wanted to be pushed. I wanted to be uncomfortable, knowing that this is something that I needed to work on and I wanted to be different. And we just worked on all types of different moves going into my shot. And we did that every single day. Every single day. Maybe I would have like a day off in between, but we did it every single day, and I would at least shoot. I don't know how many shots I would shoot. It had to be over 1,000. Just working on every single thing, and that paid off, honestly, and that kind of got my mind back into how I used to feel at UCLA. Just the mental aspect of I can shoot the ball. I mean, I know that I can. I just have to be confident in my shooting.
No doubt about it. Well, we're going to be back momentarily to talk about the future of Jordin Canada and how we're going to visualize it together in just a sec. All right. So we're thinking about what your future looks like. And like I said, we're entering prime time territory for the Jordin Canada experience. And so I'm trying to I wonder how you see it. I'm going to take it briefly through how I see it. I see somebody who, and why you are at the top of my list for most improved player is because you're a two-way player, because of the fact that you have never deviated from being an elite defensive player at UCLA in the pros. The steal percentage has always been north of 3. That is so significant to me as somebody who's doing that while running a team at the same time. But you think about where can it go from here? What are your benchmarks? What are you looking at? You have proven yourself here in this league. Where do you want it to go? You and I are having this conversation in 2026. What should we be talking about where your career is by the time you're 30?
To be honest, I just want to be the best version of myself in whatever capacity that is. Obviously, the accolades will be very, rewarding. But at the end of the day, I just want to play to the best of my ability and making sure that I am doing the job that I need to do to make our team successful. That's really what's most important to me. And I believe that if I do that, then everything else will take care of itself and all those accolades will start to come. But I don't want to be so focused on I need to get this, I need to get that, because then I take away. I don't want to be, tunnel vision on something. I just want to be able to play the best that I can play on the offensive end and on the defensive end, and I believe that will all take care of itself.
That all makes sense, and obviously there are two places where you can do that. Both overseas during the off season and here in the WNBA during the season. How do you feel about overseas at this point? Is it something that you're hoping to get back to? Is it something where you're thinking about that relative to things like AU and even Unrivaled? Just take me through how you think the best way forward is for you. And obviously, if you haven't come to any conclusion, that makes sense too.
Every year is different. This year I will be going overseas. I'm going to play in Australia for the Melbourne Boomers. So I'm pretty excited about that. That is completely different from Europe basketball. But, I wanted to take a chance of going back overseas, and I heard great things about the Australian League. So I'm pretty excited to get over there and see what that's like. But every year is different. Last year I played in AU, and I had some time in the in the off season right after the WNBA to train and shoot and work on my game, and then going into AU season. And that was a great experience as well. I had a great time there building friendships and, just being able to hoop and not think about, the logistics of things and the system and just going out there and having fun. I really enjoyed that. So I think every year is different. I don't know how I'm going to feel next year, this time around, if I want to go overseas again, if I want to just, take that time to rest. But this year I decided that I wanted to go to Australia. I felt that it was important for me to continue this rhythm that I have. So that's what I decided to do this year.
And it sets you up. First of all, the beauty of it is that you have choices, which is what should be. That's the world that we should be living in. So that's first and foremost. And the second is that it sets you up to be able to come back to the WNBA. There's not a worry with prioritization because the Australian season allows for that. as well. When you're having these conversations, like you said, you're an LA product growing up. You want to be part of this rebuild. Is that your hope? Is your hope that LA can be your in-season home for a long time to come?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, you never really know what opportunities could arise, but I mean, I hope that is, somewhere in my near future of always having LA as an option to stay home and play for my city. But you never know what could happen.
You never know what can happen, but sure have proven it season after season here. And I certainly know that the Sparks, but as you said, other teams taking notice too. So Jordin Canada with lots of choices and lots of opportunities. If you'll forgive the point of personal privilege, am delighted to see it. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to chat with us. To our listeners, thank you for making us a part of your day every day. The great Natalie Heverin will be hosting tomorrow, and we will be with you, of course, 6 days a week, this week and every week. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Thursday.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.